Fellow FPL managers, I genuinely believe there are 8 valid captaincy options this game week, and we are going to look at every single one along with my team for game week 30. Make sure you like and subscribe, and let's get right into the video. Now, a couple of things I need to talk about first. We went through the results in my last video. Yeah, Pedro and Semenyo basically ruined all the fun I was going to have because I actually had some good returns and my front three was awful. Had a small red arrow. It's not the end of the world. The top 10k shades are gone, but hopefully I will have them back soon. As for making a team selection video on a Monday instead of the usual transfer tips video, it's because I can't make a transfer tips video until the draw is done on a Monday evening. And I like to get my first video of the game week out before Monday, or before Monday evening, normally on a Monday. I don't want to wait until Tuesday because then I won't have the time to make both my videos. So I thought instead of waiting and only making one video, I'm going to make my team selection now because I know what my team's going to look like unless there are some injuries across the rest of the week, which could happen. I'm hoping there won't be, but there should be no transfers made in my team, so it should be all fine. As for the transfer tips, I want to talk about the FA Cup semi-finals, but I won't know much about it until the FA Cup quarter-final draw is done on the Monday evening. The reason why the FA Cup quarter-final draw is important is because we can get some percentage chances, some odds on which team is going to qualify for the semi-finals, meaning we can get some odds as to, which teams are actually going to blank in game week 34, causing them to double in game week 33. That's really important information that I don't have right now, so I'm not going to do a transfer tips video. I don't think you should make any transfers this game week anyway if you can, because it's such a good week to roll your transfers. Save them for game week 32, because that is when the FA Cup semi-finals will be confirmed. But yeah, that's why the team selection video is coming early and the transfer tips is coming later on. I hope you can all understand. This, on paper, should be my best game week of the season, aside from not using a chip. Verbruggen away to Sunderland isn't especially easy, but Sunderland are on fairly awful form. Offensively, they are terrible. Across the entire season, they are 18th for expected goals, on par with Wolves and ahead of Burnley. They are truly down there with the worst attacks this season. So hopefully, Verbruggen can keep me a clean sheet because the Brighton defence has not been awful recently. It's just been they've conceded the odd goal here and there. So there is some hope there for Verbruggen. As for Gabriel and Timber, I'm so glad I held these two. There's a reason I set and forget them in my team for weeks and weeks and weeks. In fact, I've owned Gabriel since game week 1. And I called that he was going to be the best defender in FPL by far. And I think I've been proven right now. So shout out to me for that one. I did well there. The thing is with Gabriel, it's weird, right? I think in terms of points per game, he's the highest scoring player in FPL. If he didn't get injured for those 6 to 8 game weeks, I think he would be the first highest scorer in FPL above Haaland. Obviously, that's all speculation, but I think that would be the case. He is such good value. There's no two ways about it. I think you have to own him. Of course, he's going to blank, so you can sell him in game week 31. But honestly, Gabriel is just so essential. Even when he gets DEFCONs and his partner here, Timber, gets DEFCONs and an assist, Gabriel still gets all the bonus points. I don't know why. He's a bonus points magnet, he gets loads of DEFCONs, and he is so reliable for minutes. And to finish off that back line, we have Vandenberg, who is playing home to the 19th best attack in the league, the second worst. It should be a fairly easy fixture. This defense is full of potential points everywhere. Vandenberg is also good in the box. He's also good for DEFCON. So hopefully this back three can bear me the fruits of a huge green arrow. In midfield, we also look good. Gordon plays away to Chelsea, but Chelsea do not keep clean sheets even in the easiest possible fixtures. Newcastle will score, and Gordon is looking at the best for underlying data in the last 4 game weeks. So I'm very optimistic. I owned him last week where he scored 1, and he probably should have scored twice. Also, you'll notice I am not showing you the captain's armband yet. It's because I will reveal my captain when we analyse the captaincy options. As for Rice, he's playing home to Everton. Good fixture. But the fixtures don't really matter for Rice because he can do well playing away to Man City or home to Everton. There's no real difference because it's set pieces, DEFCONs, and a clean sheet point, and the fixture doesn't really matter for him because he can do that in any game. He is 1 DEFCON off 6 returns in his last 6 games, so it's weird to me that people are selling him. The only reason he blanked last game week is because he got 11 DEFCONs instead of 12, and the 5 games before that, he didn't blank. So I think he's a great player to hold, but obviously, if you need a new midfielder and you need to sell one to bring in that midfielder, Rice is okay to sell because he blanks in game week 31. It's the most sensible choice, but for me, I'm going to sell him on game week 31 because I don't want to go a game week without Declan Rice. There's not many better midfielders to own. Then we have Dango Uwatara. Not been amazing since I brought him in, But I'm patient, you know. He's cheap for a reason. I didn't spend big, so I can't expect massive big hauls every week. Bruno Fernandes in his last 9 games has 7 returns. 4 of those 7 returns are double-digit returns. The guy is on amazing form, the form of his life, and he is playing home to one of the most off-form teams in the Premier League. I'm talking about a team that played home to Chelsea and conceded 3 goals to João Pedro, and that's no insult to João Pedro, but that is something that should not be happening to Aston Villa. As a whole, across the entire season, you won't believe this, but they sit 14th for expected goals conceded. Aston Villa are not a strong defence. We'll talk about it more when we analyse the captaincy options, because Bruno is obviously one of those captaincy options. But yeah, this is a great fixture for Bruno, and all of you watching this should own him. If you don't, make sure you bring him in. Front 3 now, we are keeping Haaland, and I'm not a fan of owning him, but he's way too scary to go without. The risk to reward ratio isn't worth it. Like, yeah, I could own João Pedro, but João Pedro isn't exactly amazing to own. Sure, he did amazing and he is on good form, but the fixture run is only average, and fair enough, a good player will do well on an average fixture run, but Haaland could just pop off at any moment. Yeah, sure, he blanks 5 games in a row, but he could go and score 4 goals in the next game, and his ownership is always going to be so high. Do you really want to be going against him? I know why I don't. Maybe that's because I'm a wimp, I'm a scaredy cat, but we'll find out when Haaland bags 17 points. Right after you sell him. Then we have Thiago, home to Wolves. Great fixture, great FPL asset. A lot of people own him. If you don't own him, he is going to massively hurt your rank if he does well. If you do own him, then sure, him doing well will help you, but not by a whole lot. And the same goes for Ekitike. Both 2 really good strikers, both with really good fixtures, and both, once again, captaincy options. The question is, who do you go with? Well, luckily, I've got you covered. I've got 8 captaincy options to analyse in depth here, and we are going to look at them from 8th to 1st in the order of what I think is the worst captain and what is the best captain out of all 8 options. So let's get into it. So we actually have Haaland in 8th, but he is still probably going to be the most captain player in FPL. This is because people are scared to go without him, but his underlying data isn't great, his form isn't great either, but he is Erling Haaland. He can turn up and score a hat-trick in any game week. And West Ham across the entire season are very poor defensively, but if you look in the last 8 games, they sit in 9th for expected goals conceded, which is quite strong. The main advantage Erling Haaland has is the fact they concede the most headed chances out of every team in the league. So there is definitely some advantages to going with him, like he's also on penalties, and like I said, it is Haaland, but you need to be careful when going with him because I don't think he's especially amazing, but he's still good. And so is the fixture. Next up, we have the other very expensive player in FPL, Mohamed Salah. He's definitely a good player, and not many of you own him. I bet some of you that do are really looking forward to captaining him. And sure, he's great, but I do think there are better options from Liverpool, which is why I've put him a bit lower. Spurs across the entire season are mid-table for defensive data, you know, 11th for expected goals conceded, but in the last 8 games, they are 20th, which is very good for Liverpool assets if you're considering using them as your captain. But Salah is not great this season. His underlying data has not been good all season long. You know, fair enough, he's on penalties, but that's all he really has going for him, in my opinion. I don't think he's anything special. So yeah, while technically I still think he's better than Haaland this week, I don't think you should be captaining him over the likes of Ekitike or Florian Wirtz, who's back in the Liverpool squad. I mean, fair enough, if you own Salah and not those two, then maybe it could be an okay option, but I personally wouldn't go there. I think it's too high of a risk and not enough of a reward. Then we have the only defender I'm going to mention. It is Gabriel. Great for defcons, not too bad going forward, you know, 0.12 XGI per 90. It's not great, but for a defender, you can't expect a lot more. The defensive data for Arsenal was obviously ridiculous on another level compared to any other team. 0.65 expected goals conceded per game is unreal. I don't think we can fathom how good that is. Their expected clean sheets are so high, and they're playing home to a team who are 15th for expected goals across the entire season. They don't do too badly in, you know, defending set pieces though, which is bad for Gabriel because that's where his goal threat comes from. Set pieces. He's rarely ever going to run into the box from open play. So it means Gabriel may not be incredibly likely to score a headed goal, but we saw it last game week. All he did was keep a clean sheet and get defcons, and he still got 3 bonus points. That's why he is such a good player to own. And you never know, he could get an assist from a headed flick on or maybe even a long ball. We don't know. He does have a lot of avenues to go down to get points though, and that Arsenal defence is very strong. But I do believe there are better attackers to go for with higher ceilings, because if Everton score once, then your captaincy dream is over. Next up, we have Semenyo, the same fixture as Haaland, obviously, because they play for the same team. But Semenyo is much better, he's scoring goals, he's overperforming the expected goals, and he gets more expected goals. Haaland also isn't guaranteed to play anymore because Marmoush just scored a brace in the midweek. Midweek, he scored on the weekend, but it was in between game weeks, you know. Marmoush scored a brace, basically, which means Haaland could be the second choice now, you never know. I doubt it, but that risk is there. So Semenyo is a much better player to own. He has no positional matchup that works strongly against West Ham. The only thing they're really weak at is conceding headers, and Semenyo doesn't really score headers, but he is very active inside the box. So I think he is definitely the best player to target from Man City for your captaincy option playing away to West Ham. But West Ham are on some good form, so I'll be careful when going for Semenyo, but it definitely still is a great option. Very scary, you know, for me because I don't own him and I don't want him to do well, so it's hard to admit he is quite a strong option this week. Next up, we have Ekitike. Ekitike is once again playing home to Spurs, and we all know how good that matchup is, especially with Spurs' recent form. But I think he is a better player than Mohamed Salah to own because that Liverpool striker is going to pick up more expected goals than Salah. It's obvious, fair enough. He's not the most clinical, and that's why he is lower on this list because he doesn't always do a great job of finishing his chances. But in general, I do think he's going to pick up a lot more, which makes him a better option because Salah, I know it's kind of cliche to say, but he is pushed out wide. Ekitike isn't. He's at the centre of it all, and I think he is one of the better Liverpool players to target when looking at them playing home to Tottenham. But I don't think he's the best because I do believe in strong positional matchups, and Tottenham are really weak to attacking mids this season, conceded some of the most goals to attacking mids, whether that's a cut back to the edge of the box or just a shot from range. Tottenham don't do well at defending them. So when picking your captaincy, you don't necessarily want to pick the striker playing against Tottenham. You want to pick the attacking mid, but not a lot of people will own the attacking mid, so the striker is the next best player to target, and I think, by the way, he is still a great captaincy option. Every player I've mentioned on this list is a great option. It's just, you know, fine margins. Some are better than others, and I believe Ekitike sits safely in the middle. Now we have the top three. We have Thiago, and I did not expect to be putting Thiago above Ekitike, but looking at the stats, I've changed my mind. You know, despite Thiago's poor underlying data recently, they have had some tough games, so it's no big surprise. One thing Thiago has above Ekitike is also penalties, but in the last 8 game weeks, I thought Spurs were a lot worse than Wolves, but it turns out they're very similar. 19th and 20th. The difference is Wolves are not too good against strikers and right wingers, and sure, we could look at the Brentford right winger, but the right winger is not going to do as well as Igor Thiago, so we're not going to go there. I mean, if you really want to go super differential, you could go for Kevin Schade or Dango Ouattara, but I don't think either of those two make the top 8. I think Thiago is the third best captaincy option this game week, and it doesn't need a ton of explaining. Home to Wolves is one of the best fixtures in the league, and Thiago is the second highest goal scorer in the league. With Wolves having a positional matchup weakness to strikers, it sort of just makes sense. So yeah, the only one thing that harms Thiago when looking at this potential captaincy option is the fact he is on bad form. That sort of puts me off it, but not enough to put him off of my top 3. Next up, we have a player who's only just coming back from injury, a player who I think is going to start in game week 30. Now, there's no guarantee he's going to start in game week 30, okay? I'm not promising that. If you find out that before the game week, Wirtz is going to be on the bench, you definitely shouldn't make him your captain. But he did play last game for Liverpool in the FA Cup, and that game is over a week before Liverpool's next Premier League game. So Wirtz is back up to match fitness, and I don't think there's really anyone contesting his spot. So I think he is going to be reliable for minutes. I don't think he's going to be eased back in because Liverpool also have another game in the midweek, and we can use that to make sure with, you know, certain of Wirtz's minutes. If Wirtz comes in and starts and plays 70 to 80 minutes, that bodes well. That's a good sign. It means he's probably going to start home to Tottenham and be the second best captaincy option. Either way, I'm not going to own him because I had to sell him when he got injured, and I don't think a lot of you will own him either, so not many people will go with this captaincy option, and that's fair enough. He's just going to be a big scorer that we all miss out on. Well, at least I think he's going to be a big scorer. I can't guarantee it. I'm not a fortune teller, but I think he'll do well because of that strong positional matchup. Now, I am obviously a bit biased when looking at the guy in first place. You know, you can just about see the Man United top here. Bruno Fernandes is probably without a doubt the best player in the league this season. I mean, you could compare him to Haaland or Gabriel, but it's a different position, you know. Either way, I think Bruno is definitely right now the best player you can pick in the Premier League, and he is playing home to a very off-form Aston Villa team. An Aston Villa team that sits 16th for expected goals conceded in the last 8 games, 14th across the entire season, 3 key players injured, and they're not great at defending set pieces. Surely they're not awful at, conceding them. They don't concede loads, but they're not great at defending them either. And Bruno gets most of his returns from set pieces, corners, free kicks, and penalties. So I think he is the best player to target for your captaincy in game week 30. I mean, he's on penalties, even though his goal threat isn't great, he does take them. In terms of creative potential, he's obviously fantastic. He got an assist last game week from a set piece. He also created a few massive chances from open play that his teammates probably should have scored. That 8-pointer last game week was too low. He should have had another double-digit return. So Bruno, for me, is just looking way too potent. That's the right word, potent. So many avenues to go down to get points, on amazing form, against a team on awful form, missing key players. I don't see how he can blank. I feel like it's almost physically impossible, especially with Man United wanting to bounce back from their first loss in a long while. Once again, I believe all 8 options I just talked about are great captaincy options. I wouldn't talk about them if I didn't think they were great for the next game week going forward, but I think Bruno is the absolute best because he could score, he could get an assist, he could score twice, he could get 2 or 3 assists. The possibilities are endless. The FCons aren't really there for him anymore, but he doesn't need them. Remember, he's also a midfielder that gets an extra point for scoring, unlike forwards who get 4, he will get 5. He also gets an extra point for the chance of a clean sheet. Man United defensively are second best in the league across the last 8 game weeks, and Aston Villa look awful going forward. So there is a potential for a cheeky extra point there, Like I said, the possibilities are endless. Anyway guys, that is it from me. Let me know what you think of my captaincy ratings down below. Do you disagree? What would you change? And if you made it this far, thank you very much for watching. I will see you all in the next video.